welcome to the journey. And today's journey is with a mind body educator and integrative therapy practitioner, also a professional coach for over 20 years. But our guest has empowered hundreds of clients to achieve their goals and transform their lives and relationships. Going through three divorces taught him the need for and the power of change. Now, 16 years into an amazing marriage, our guest is on a love mission to pay it forward to help and support other men, and this does apply to females as well, but I assume we're going to talk about men in this perspective, find their way on their path to love. He is a relationship coach, and he does host a podcast as well, which is called Men on the Path to Love. I welcome Phil to the
Hey,
journey.
David.
Hey,
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Hey.
Now, journeys obviously I touch upon some of your highlights of your life, but that's not what I want to start on. The earliest memories I always like to talk about is you start on a journey, and that's natural. I'm going on page one, I'm going from Florida to California via Texas. You have to plan a route,
hmm
and you always got an idea. Did you have an idea when you was growing up that your journey was going to take you to where you are now?
I had no idea, David. I think, as I paused there to think about it, maybe I did because I really liked helping people. I remember that. Had no aspiration to really do that early on, but I think now that I'm thinking about it, that was in there somewhere. Um, of course, I started out as a child, just like most of us, and I my earliest memory of really, dealing with my childhood was, I mean, I'd say I had a happy childhood from up to when I was around 6 years old. Occasionally, I would hear my parents argue. Um, my mom could be quite strict at times and quite harsh at times, but overall, I felt like I had a pretty good childhood. And at the age of 6, my parents got divorced. And so I went to live with my mother and my youngest brother. I was the youngest of five. My other siblings were like, 12, 13, 15 years older. They had gone on their way. So I was there with my brother, who was 6 years older than me, and, relatively happy. My mom could be the most nurturing mom one minute, and then the next thing I know, she's putting glass on the table and says, "That's your dinner." It was a really uh, a dichotomy of not knowing what I was going to get. And so I was kind of anxious a lot of the time. I was always wanting that nurturing mom and terrified of the other side of her.
Hmm.
And I know she was under a lot of stress. It was hard for her being a single mom and all that she was going through. I know her mother was quite demanding of her as well. And anyway, a couple of years later, she decided to give custody to my father of my brother and me. And we went to live with him. And I didn't see my mom after that. And when I was 13 years old, she had died of a heart attack. So I really didn't see her. I was just, she was gone since I was 8. There was one instance where I did see her. We lived in the same town for a while. I was on my way to work, I mean, on my way to school. I think I was about 11 or 12. And I actually saw her in a taxi cab driving by as I was walking. And I remember doing a double take, going, "That's my mom!" Like, and it just kind of hit me. And then I went on to school, and that was the end of it. So that was the last time I saw her.
Yeah.
And so little did I know that that was going to have a huge impact on my life.
It's
My dad was present. He remarried, and thank God he did. My stepmom was a real solid, kind of grounding force in my life. My dad was a functional alcoholic, and he was there physically, but emotionally, he wasn't there for me. Oftentimes, I had to parentify him because I lost my mom, and then 6 months later, my oldest brother was killed in an automobile, in a car accident, and I was more there for him in his loss than he was there for me with my loss.
Yeah.
So I was parentifying him, and that kind of goes to the wounded warrior. You know, as we go through these traumas in our lives, and then we're there to help other people, and then here I am, fast forward to now, helping people in their lives, coaching and so on. So anyway, getting back to the impact that my mom's loss had on me. When I started dating in high school, I started a pattern of being with a girl and then finding another girl, leaving one, and then going to the other. So they always overlapped.
Mm.
And I didn't know, any reason for that. It's just what I did. And that pattern went through my college years, all the way up through my first marriage. And in my first marriage, I was on the radio, very successful morning show here in Philadelphia. And, they don't call this city the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. They call it that for a reason because there were a lot of affectionate sisters that were very tempting to me. And, uh, and I'm not proud of this, but I did succumb a few times and realized that this is just not fair to my wife. I was too immature to be in a committed relationship. I really didn't know what I was doing. I thought is what I was supposed to do. We got along great. Wasn't that she did anything wrong? We had a great sex life. It was just that I was too immature and wanted my cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
So with that, one of the women that I'd overlapped with my first wife, ended up becoming my second wife. And that was uh, that was an interesting time because I was when I started going to therapy, and started learning some things about myself. We went to couples therapy. We got along fairly well, but there was just some issues going on that we wanted to clarify. And I learned some things about myself that I had an abandonment issue because my mom left me. And my dad wasn't really present. And so I would overlap because I had to end the relationship and be in another one so I wouldn't be left abandoned. So that was kind of a light bulb moment. And then I found out some things about myself. It's easy to put blame. I could tell you a bunch of juicy stories about my exes and put the blame on them and everything. And I'm not here to throw my exes under the bus. I have no regrets for those marriages or any relationship. Um, I can only take responsibility for me. And part of what I learned there was that I was controlling. I was making a lot of money at the time. I probably had a zero over my wife's salary, and I was making all the financial decisions. We had this big 27-room house. I made all the house decisions. I was doing everything, not knowing that I was controlling. It's just what I was doing, thinking I was doing the right thing, and she felt controlled. And another thing that I realized in that therapy was that I had what's called the knight in shining armor syndrome. That I was there to save her. She had
Mm.
4 kids. We had a daughter together. I was there to save her and her kids and be the hero. And that's not my job. And
Mm.
so I learned a few things with that relationship, and ultimately that relationship dissolved. And I had been faithful during that whole marriage. And all of a sudden, she moved out. 4 kids, my daughter that we shared, all moved out. And I remember sitting in an empty living room in this big house, on the floor with my dog, and I was sobbing because for the first time in my life, I was all alone. I
Yeah.
was not in a relationship anymore.
And it's just a powerful impact, our being abandoned does follow you throughout life
Absolutely.
because it's about seeking validation from others to make yourself feel good.
Hmm.
I've been there myself. I've been had a few partners in my life. I've even had a wife in my time. Sadly, the marriage didn't work for me because it was driven apart. because of the fact, and I'm like, I will never judge it publicly either, but it just felt like I wasn't validated in being supported enough by her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like she was, and like I said, I'm trying to not blame her entirely, but the fact is, her family, she was influenced by family decisions. Her,
Mm.
what her family said, she listened.
Hmm. And so
So
she
that's,
was more loyal to the family than to you
yeah,
in a relationship.
yeah.
And
And even though the words from her mouth were, I love you, I love you, I really love you, I don't want to lose you, I gave up a lot to be with her.
hmm
And not everyone realized that full extent. It's like the last thing that ultimately ended the relationship. Something happened within the family dynamic.
mm
She failed to remind them, don't forget David tried to help us as well. Because I out financially in a situation that she needed help for.
hmm
And I gave some money to her help. It didn't work at the time, but obviously it did work down the line because the situation came back into her life. But the fact was, it wasn't down to me to give that money, but I gave it because I wanted to help support the family in getting what they wanted.
Sure. Yeah.
But it just felt like that was when it came to it. David, you can't be this, you can't be that. I was restrained.
Yeah. Yeah. You couldn't be
And
yourself.
throughout my life in any kind of relationship, and this is how it's relatable, I've always sought validation of being with someone because I hated being alone as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm with someone who loves me for me, and yes, and like I said, I try not to talk too much about personal things, but I know she loves me for me. Even though I'm having inner issues within myself,
hmm
I know she's there for me now, no matter what, and I just don't openly share the same, when she says something, I do love her.
hmm
When she wants to be supportive, I know she's supportive. When
Yeah.
she needs someone, I'm there.
Yeah. We need that support, and I appreciate you sharing that, and being vulnerable to share that, because a lot of times us guys, we just suck it in, and we don't do that, and you found that support, and that's beautiful.
And it's just a fact. And I know she listens to my podcast, so I know she'll smile at this, but I'm grateful for her being there,
That's great. Yeah.
even if I don't automatically show it. And she knows I don't show it sometimes, and she often tells me, why aren't you? But she's not meaning it in a harsh way.
Yeah.
She
Well,
just
she
wants
knows
it to,
now.
yeah. But she knows, there is love there for me. She
Yeah.
knows I love her. She
Yeah.
knows that I'm standing by her. She knows she's standing by me. So we're coming to a neutral middle ground.
Yeah. That's what
I
it's all
just got
about.
to, I just got to let go of those insecurities that's holding me back completely. Because I know there is insecurities holding me back,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've told
Well,
her that, and I just said I need to seek help about it.
hmm yeah. And getting that help to get you to really um, see the value in yourself, the worth in yourself, and who you are, and that's what I'll get to when the relationship I'm in now. But going back to that day, that night, being on the floor and sobbing and being alone um, was terrifying for me. I had a lot of materialistic stuff, but my heart was just, broken and empty. And part of my healing journey was to do exactly what we were just saying, was to get to know me and be okay with me by myself, not in a relationship, not depending on anyone's validation, just to be me. And that took a lot of work, took a lot of courage and strength to do that. I'll own that. Um, and it's an ongoing process, And so, as that happened, I started a lot of different things. I had shifted my radio career. Well, during my radio career, I started learning some holistic health modalities. I learned massage and body work, different uh, things like that. I started learning Tai Chi and Qigong meditation. all these things to help me with the stress of my job and also in the transition of me being single again. And through all these things, I became so impassioned that I actually shifted my career from radio into holistic health practice, and then became a mind body educator and integrative therapy practitioner, most recently, the past 10 years at a health clinic. And with that transition, when I was in between relationships, my Tai Chi master was living with me at the time, and he was offering classes at my house. And my third wife started coming to those classes, and we got to talking, and we definitely had a vibe. And turned out that she was married, and that was a problem. I mean, the relationship was pretty much done in her, from what she said. But she had a son, a young son, like a year and a half, and they were together, to co-parent the child, still living in the same house. And he knew about me, kind of, we were out in the open, but it was just too much of a roller coaster for me, and I had to set a boundary because of the work I had done for myself to say, look, I want to be with you. I love you. And when you've gotten divorced and he's out of the house and you're on your own, give me a call, see where I am, and we'll take it from there. Well, fast forward, she did all that. We got together. Ultimately, we got married and had a son together. Well, during that time, I slowly but surely, as I was growing, my practice was growing, I was getting further away from my radio career and more into my holistic health practice. Um, I started to feel that she wanted me to, well, let me say it this way, that I was trying to live up to her expectations of me and who she thought I was.
Mm.
And how maybe I let on that I was, that she picked up on. Yet through my so-called evolution, I guess, I started feeling more and more isolated, that I just felt like I was losing my identity in the relationship, losing myself. And ultimately, that relationship dissolved, and I ended up, at one point in a 27-room house to one room in someone's house that I rented from a friend of a friend. And I, at that point, with all the skills that I learned, everything I learned about relationship, everything that I was doing, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just live a monk's life and give up this whole relationship thing, because maybe I'm just not, capable of doing it as much as I want it. And that was it. I was done and gave up on it pretty much. And then one evening I was sitting in meditation, and this message came to me loud and clear, like Lion King, like Rafiki and the Lion King. It is time. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, like, it was this strong push. It is time. And I was pushed to put my profile on a dating site. And I'm like, dude, I can't do this right now. I don't look good on paper. I've been through three divorces. I got two kids. I'm living in one room in someone's house. Oh, and by the way, I got laid off my radio job. I was still doing some of the holistic health stuff. So I didn't look good at all on paper.
Mm.
But this push was so strong that I went to the website. I put my profile in. And 3 days later, I get this nudge from a woman who was close by. Most of the nudges was getting were from different countries, Russia, and all across the world. But this person was like a half hour away, and so I responded, and we started chatting back and forth via email. And I let her know where I was right off the bat, and she hung in there. And she was like, "Oh, well, at least you believe in marriage." And so we got to know each other. We put out our values and all this stuff online, her dirty laundry, everything that we shared online. And then this is before we even talked on the phone. We ended up talking on the phone and set up a time to meet. And David, when I met her, when my eyes met her eyes, I knew that I was home. That's what it felt like.
You felt
Where,
solid ground.
yeah. And where I could be totally myself, that
Mm,
I didn't have to live up to her expectation. I just had to be me. And we fell in love. She loved me in spite of who I am, and that's all I could be. And this relationship is 16 years plus strong, and I'm happy in this marriage, and it just gets stronger and stronger every day. And I feel more free in this marriage than I ever felt in any other relationship. And even, being by myself, like I get to be me, and I have the added advantage of having a partner that's there to love and support me as I love
yeah.
and support her.
And that's a good thing because, like you said, you can go through a lot of crap in life.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And that crap, when you originally see it, you tend to ignore certain things. Like when I was in England, yes, I met my former wife,
Mm-hmm.
online. She said she was in England, which turned out she wasn't. She was in America, but
Mm-hmm.
she put on a date, it wasn't a dating site, it was Meet Me, which is my yearbook back in the day. And she made out that she was in England living. She made out she was this person. She said, I want to know you. There's a lot of red flags that was put out for me, and people saw those red flags. I tended to ignore those red flags.
Yeah, we do that when we don't want to see the other side. We just want to
And
be with that person.
and I've been like I said, previous relationships before her, and it's like, why do I keep getting into it? And I keep blaming myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said, where I am now, yes, how I met my partner now, I met through a place that I support for people, needing to reach out, but it wasn't a dating site.
Mm-hmm.
It was a support network.
Yeah.
And I was supporting her because she had various issues in her life, which is not my place to reference, but she would admit herself it's been pretty lousy for.
Mm-hmm.
And she's overcoming those issues. She's coming out the other side in a better place. Yes, she has her bad days. She admits that.
That's awesome though that
But
she
I'm
admits
there
it, and that's
supporting her.
yeah, that's a big part of it. Her admitting it. I'm actually doing a podcast on addiction, and that's and supporting a partner that may be going through addiction, and having them own it, and take responsibility for it is huge.
But
Uh,
but she was married.
hmm,
Like I said,
wow,
I was married.
yeah,
We just came together on the neutral ground of understanding each other
yeah,
because she needed someone to talk to and relate to, someone to feel validated
yeah,
to have someone understand her for her. And I wanted that same as well. And like I said, my former wife, yeah, she was sick. Granted, she was sick and I was lonely. But when she was better and she was back in level ground, like I said, the dynamics changed so much. I was out of place. I wasn't welcome there anymore.
yeah, yeah, and that's painful, and it goes both ways. It has to be reciprocated at some level.
Mm,
You can't be there all the time for one person and the other person not giving back either.
yeah. And
And the way what keeps part of what keeps my marriage going as strong as it is that my wife and I are both committed to making each other lives better. Not that we're responsible for that. We just want that for each other.
yeah.
And we have each other's back. And we know that, and it takes a lot of trust to be able to do that. But when we prove over and over again that we're there for each other, then that helps to build that trust.
Mm. But you know, when you believe in love, you take a lot and you trust a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When I started a podcast, it was when I was still married. Yes, I put her name, even though she wasn't indirectly involved in the podcast, I made her part of the podcast because she wanted to be part of it. Obviously, another warning sign in some people's eyes because why does she want to take control of something that you enjoy yourself when she doesn't even actively take part in it?
Right, right.
And I added a name. I had the voiceover person who I had in the early days, and I thank him for doing the voiceover. But it's like I had a name included.
Hmm.
I've got my partner who I'm with now. Yes, she does the voiceover for me. You listen to the audio saying got a journey, want to share it with others. That's her voice. I
Awesome.
like that because it's a nice natural sounding voice, and I
Yeah, that's
compliment on
great.
her.
That's great. Yeah.
And,
Love it.
all she wants in thanks is just me being there for her and me
Mhm.
supporting whatever she does. And she's written poetry, and you read this at the end as well. She's written poetry where she writes poetry about her life. And now she's gone through what she's gone through, but it's written as a third person perspective. Not
Oh,
written as her, but if it was someone that she's seen.
and that's healing in itself to be able to put that whatever she went through, through the creative process,
Yeah.
and channeling it that way.
And, I just wholeheartedly support her in doing that. Like she's now doing a new thing on a new well, it's not new, it's been out for a while, I'd imagine, but she's doing things just to get people to realize her potential as a person, to see that there is people who can relate to, because, when she writes poems, she writes in such a way,
Hmm.
someone can relate somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
So if it's on another social media trying to make people not intentionally buy it, but it's a way of saying you like what you hear, get it.
Hmm.
It's out
Yeah.
there. And it is out there. It's available as all in Barnes& and Noble audio books. It's
That's awesome.
available as a ebook mainly on Amazon. So
That's
she's
great.
done 30 of them and she's proud of that. But she just feels invalidated when she thinks no one wants to buy her stuff. And I said,
Yeah.
it takes time, but she thinks time doesn't come quick enough. But
Yeah, well,
me
that's
talking
always the
about it
case.
now is promoting it.
Yeah, we think we should be always further along than we actually are. And the way I measure progress is I look backwards and say, well, where were you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20, 25? It's like, wow, I've come a long way versus thinking we should be further along than
Yeah.
we are. And what I appreciate about you sharing that story, David, is how she let her experiences you know, to want to help others, and from what she learned and went through with her poetry and so on, is similar to my path. Where if you had asked me, 3 marriages ago, or 4 marriages ago, I guess you'd say, would I be a relationship coach for men? I'd be like, you got to be kidding. What? But my journey, I learned really well, became an expert in what not to do in relationship, and have become now an expert of what to do and what I know does work and what's so important to have a thriving relationship. So again, it goes back to that wounded warrior, what I was saying, like we're wounded, and yet we heal from that and we move on from that, and then from that we can support others in a way that those who've never been through experiences like that can relate.
And that's one good thing about the podcast,
Yeah.
because everyone's got a journey, everyone's got a life story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Look,
appreciate you allowing folks to do that, because sharing our journeys is healing in itself.
yeah. And it started off as not a spin-off from what I'd done in the past, but I wanted to do something that I was familiar with.
Hmm.
Now, if I could earn more money, yeah, fine, so be it. But
Yeah,
as you know, monetary gain isn't always about everything.
you're right.
And the way I look at it, yes, I've done over 170, nearly 180 podcasts since
Mm.
2020, I think it was.
Wow.
And I divide those into 15 episodes per block. And this is the 13th season as I record this.
Wow. That's awesome.
But I always find everyone has a journey. If it's a famous actor that I didn't know who they were acting in, like I have done,
Hmm.
I'm in awe afterwards. But I don't fan base it on the fact I'm interviewing a celebrity because, like I said, I didn't know that person, for example, was a celebrity
Right, right.
compared to someone I did know was a celebrity and they had strong opinions, but they had to be reserved about it because they didn't want to damage their career.
Yeah, that's
Compared to a business person who started off with $1 in their pocket
hmm
to someone who's got tens of thousands in their bank. It's not about that. It's just about allowing that person to have their journey shared with others.
yeah. And the beauty of hearing other people's journeys is to say, wow, he did that. Maybe I can do that. Or, wow, yeah, that sounds like my story too. And that in itself validates other people when they hear someone maybe that's famous and successful have gone through the same thing they went through. It's like, wow, they did that. Wow, well, I did too. And maybe I can do something with my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I got this audio from when I did an interview way back when I was in England.
hmm
The radio station had some funding to do like a hour set show with no music. It just had to be talking.
hmm
I said I local interview a local man, and he was very local to where I lived.
hmm
And I remember I said I can't record you with any music. It's just me and you talking. And I remember the first words I said when I said, "Malcolm, introduce yourself. Tell us your name." And it's like I already said your name, so why am I saying Malcolm? But he was like so insightful because he
hmm
was a local man to where I lived and he had a lot of local knowledge and now he saw life for himself. And at the time he was in his late 80s, I believe.
Wow.
And he just had a lot of story to tell.
hmm
How he grew up being in a certain area, moving away, going to another location. But ultimately he was showing his true roots to still being the local person he was in that community.
hmm Yeah, and storytelling, David, is another way to really heal. As you know, and I tell stories on my podcast, whether it's a story about my life or one of my clients' experiences, so people can relate. They relate to stories, and like I said earlier, you can heal from listening to other people's stories and be inspired. And it's just such a powerful way to communicate and
Mm.
get through to others. Yeah.
And the sad fact is, if you're not actually doing it as a podcast, you're limited.
hmm
And I'm trying to not judge major company, radio networks or t television networks, but you are limited
Yeah.
because they
Well,
don't want you to be open.
yeah. I had a 35-year career in radio and a long stint here in Philadelphia doing a major morning show. And my partner and I, may he rest in peace, um, we made a pact that once this stopped being fun, we weren't going to do it anymore. And it was getting to the point where management was wanting us to go against each other because we were like two, peas in a pod. We were like brothers from another mother. We just could finish each other's sentences. So a lot of our opinions were the same, and
Mm,
they wanted us to disagree with each other even if we didn't disagree, just to create drama. And that was the beginning of it starting not to be fun. And then they brought in Wendy Williams, who is a big host here in the States, and um, it was just starting to shift, what we did, who we were, and ultimately they didn't re-sign us, and that was the end of that career. But
mm,
for me, I would have loved to have done another year or two just to get my financials back in order because I lost so much during my divorce.
mm,
And that was a selfish reason. But if I look at my soul, it was a blessing because I think I had it's run its course. We were together for almost 12 years, and it was time I was starting my, holistic health practice, and that's where I really wanted to put my energy. And so, yeah, corporate radio can be quite limiting, and
mm.
when they're trying to
It's
tell you
like
how to
you
think.
spoke about a radio personality in America. There was a radio personality I still follow nowadays. When
Mm-hmm.
I first heard him on the radio, he was very loud, he was very brash, he was very arrogant, he didn't give literally what he said he didn't care.
Yeah.
And he worked for the major corporate radio in England, which at the time the major radio station was BBC Radio 1.
Right. Right. Yeah.
the BBC, and the BBC, as you know, are a corporation. You do have to respect their values where can't be libelous or anything in such way.
Right.
And he got often into trouble for certain ways of talking.
Hmm.
I follow him
Well,
now. He's moved on from BBC Radio 1 because he, quit. I think they said, even though previous jobs he got fired, but I think he quit this one for BBC Radio 1. And he had a 2 year break. He came back to radio and he works for another radio station now by another big company in UK known as the Global Network. And he works under
right.
the radio station known as Radio X.
Yeah.
And he still has a sort of insane behavior, but he's not as aggressive as he was when he was younger because obviously he matured. He's learned you can't say this without getting into trouble. And I
Right.
think he knows for a fact if he said something major, that even though the radio company, brand is big, you can't be out for what you say. You got to be careful what you say.
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's, I know I was making a lot of money at that time, and a lot of folks stay in it so they'll sell their soul so they can keep making that money and living that lifestyle. And for me, it was, I got to be true to me. I can't be telling you something that I don't believe in, and I'm putting myself, my face out there, and
Mm.
you're telling me I have to say something that I don't believe in. That's just not how I roll. It's just don't want to do it that
And
way.
then
And
you go into famous presenters in America now. You got Howard Stern.
yeah,
He's been in the business for ever many years.
yeah, he was a competitor of mine at one point when in Philadelphia.
But
Yeah,
you see how strong he is as a character.
yeah, yeah. And he's mellowed out quite a bit over the years.
Exactly. And I remember first hearing him, it's like, now I listen, it's like, wow, you can tell there's a difference.
Yeah.
But he's still
Well,
respected as a disc jockey, radio presenter, whatever you want to call it.
no, with satellite radio now, he can actually say the cuss words that he couldn't say on terrestrial radio.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And
yeah,
he has a big following because of it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So going into how you see yourself and you talk about what you're doing now, do you see yourself in a place that you know you're doing better for yourself and helping others? Or do you still
Absolutely.
feel like there's improvement in you to improve?
Well, I'll answer yes to both because, like I said earlier, it's an ongoing process. I am committed to my personal growth, and I continue to do so, and I will until the wheels fall off. So there's always room to grow, and with that, moving into my third, I call it my encore career now as a relationship coach, focusing mostly on men. I do see women in my clinical practice. Most of my patients are women, probably 85% are women. And part of my reason to help men is hearing all the stories from women about the men in their lives that they love and want to be with, and this is how they're behaving. And I'd say, well, what if he were to say this, or what if he were to do that? And they were like, oh man, that would make all the difference in the world. So, that was part of the light bulb going, I think I can help these men. And I also help women by saying, well, us men, maybe the reason why he's doing that is because we've been conditioned a certain way. So give them some insight of how a man could be thinking, and then bringing that together with men to say, it's not about giving up our masculinity and who we are as men. It's enhancing it with the qualities of learning about self-compassion, learning about vulnerability and empathy and those things that are mainly attributed or historically attributed as feminine qualities. But we have both within us. And when we can enhance those parts of us, it just makes us better people to be with, right?
Yeah.
And let's all get along, and women have to see their side, men have to see their side. We both have to take responsibility for ourselves. I don't see it as a man thing or a woman thing or Venus and Mars and all that stuff. We're all capable of doing the same thing. We're human beings. It's just how we've been conditioned that can make it difficult for us to make those changes. And for someone who was conditioned that way, I'm an old school guy, and then, this evolution of 3 divorces and now into an amazing marriage. Part of that is just the natural maturation process, becoming more mature and things, but a lot of it has to do with how I've made some changes in my life and knowing how great I feel in this relationship, how grateful I am, and fortunate to have a relationship like I have. I feel it's my calling to pay that forward to help men find that for themselves because we all want love, man. We all want that support, like you're saying. We want to be
Yeah.
validated, and we want to be there to validate others, and we can open up our hearts to do that, and really commit to our own personal growth and working together in a relationship. It's just an amazing thing. So
Truly is.
yeah.
So obviously, men listening, watching will be wanting to know, can they get into contact with you to know more?
Absolutely. The easiest way to reach me is my website, and that's menonthepath-to-love.com. I know it's a long one. And there you can actually sign up for an hour coaching session with me where sometimes all it takes is an hour just to get some clarity about things. And of course, I'm, there to offer support beyond that. There's a few things you can grab on my website to help you with your growth. But the best way to reach me is through my website, menonthepath-to-love.com. You can access my podcast there as well, or any other platform, the major platforms.
Okay, and the last ultimate question I always like to end on. You're on this journey. You want to hear something positive to help you so you don't get distracted and potentially get to your destination quicker. What inspiration would you say to others to help them on their journey?
To embrace themselves, to know that the most important relationship you have is with yourself. And when you can really feel good about being with yourself, having self-compassion for all that you've been through, all that you go through, it's not a self-pity. It's just honoring the times that you've suffered and be real, be vulnerable, own it, and be okay with you. Then you move into a relationship, you're going to be much better off so that you are coming in with your healed self versus trying to expect someone to do that for you.
I
So it
agree with that.
starts with yourself.
I agree with that. And on that, I'd like to say, Bill, thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
Well, my pleasure to share my journey with you, David. Thanks so much for allowing me to do it and others as well.
Thank you. Our thanks to our guest there for a wonderful journey. And now a couple of messages to share with you.
Hello, I am Ammie Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice, and that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later.
Music by Erica R. from Pixar Bay.
By Tim Parsons. The narrator is Kate Barton. Director and producer, Darren Street. Tim Parsons would like to thank family and friends for their support with the paramedic Chris venture. The series is dedicated to the memory of his father, Reverend David Parsons. Copyright Tim Parsons 2020, all rights reserved. Unauthorized use, copying or sharing of this audiobook is strictly prohibited. This has been a Voice Reel studio production for Tim Parsons.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I've just been listening to the Paramedic Chris children's books on audio again, and I just love it because they've given a tribute in one of them to my dad as well, who passed away a few years ago. I love audio books, and it's great to walk around, and it's great to sit at the computer, if you're out jogging or wherever, to listen to them as well. All 4 of the Paramedic Chris children's books are available on audio book from Amazon. Go and take a listen to them. You won't be disappointed. You'll hear what happens when a community pulls together and supports one another. The best thing is to pop over to my website, paramedicchriskidsbooks.org, and you'll see the links on the shop page. Keep safe, everyone, and thank you for being you.
The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.